Hello everybody, the Nameless Narcissist here once again, a simple man diagnosed with NPD, giving the facts of narcissistic personality disorder and things that go on in my head. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, but keep in mind, I am no clinician. I can only speak to my own experiences and the research that I read, which is and I want to clarify, since we're talking about stalking, we are talking about research today. I have never stalked anybody. A lot of people here ask me questions about stalking, about how to get their narcissist to stop stalking them, which I have a lot of issues with that question, mainly due to the fact that, like, if you're being stalked, the last thing on your mind should be whether it has anything to do with narcissism or not. And nothing I can tell you is going to be able to help you actually get out of a situation like that, because I cannot fathom stalking somebody. Honestly, and this is going to sound terrible, but this is how I know it's true, is that I think it would be pathetic to stalk somebody. Like, someone rejects me and I'm so desperate that I'm going to chase after them? Hell no. And you guys may judge me for the fact that I don't really care as much that it's a terrible thing to do as much as I care about how pathetic it would make me look. But still, that's like humiliating. People would, oh God, gross. But yeah, and I always recommend, if you're being stalked, get the legal system involved. Document everything you can. Put in police reports so there's like a record of you making action against this. I'm going to go into some statistics here that's going to detail why it's very, very necessary for you to get the police involved as soon as you can. For example, in this study, there's a decent amount of stalkers who preemptively accused their victim of stalking to discredit them if any legal action were to be brought against them. So that's why it's important to immediately get police involved. Anyways, so I'm going to share with you guys some terrifying facts about stalking. This is a study. This was a study called, what was it called? Study of Stalkers. I can link this if you guys want. It is called Study of Stalkers, and it basically tracks 100. It basically got 144 people who were convicted of stalking, and basically got a bunch of information from them, like their motives, how long the duration was, their mental illness, and they also divided up the stalkers into several categories and groups that we can actually talk about too. Because a big portion of why I did this is because I saw a Todd Grande video where basically he talked about how this guy tried to use a mental disorder as like an insanity plea against stalking, and it got me thinking. I was like, should people be able to use an insanity plea when they're stalking somebody? And at first I was like, no, God no. And then I was like, well, but it can make sense, et cetera, et cetera. I ended up learning that that question is way more nuanced than I had ever imagined it to be. And you guys will see what I mean when we get into the types of stalkers. Anyways, so just some like basic statistics here. Like the duration of stalking ranged anywhere from 4 weeks to 20 years. 20 years. See, the stuff just doesn't go away sometimes. Like almost all of them gave unsolicited gifts like flowers, chocolate, and my personal favorite, self-help books. And they would order they'd order services for them in their name. So the most common was pizza, also very funny to me. And in one case, airplane tickets, which, wow, that guy really wasted some money. Jesus, these stalkers, my gosh. Now, these statistics are going to be particularly disturbing for those of you that do have to deal with stalkers. So 58% of the stalkers threatened their victim with violence, and about 48% of those followed through. And this danger is not just limited to their victims either. 40% threatened third parties. Property damage occurred in 40%, and 36% of these people actually did end up attacking the victim. And what's terrifying about that statistic also, well, I mean, that's terrifying on its own, but almost a fourth of those were sexual assaults. But also the likelihood of an assault was not tied to diagnosis, and also you're 3 times as likely to be murdered if you are being stalked. So yes, keep that in mind. So it broke down the mental illnesses that they had, and oh my God, it's a crockpot. I'll go a little bit more into detail about this afterwards, but 62 of them had Axis 1 disorders, 43 had delusional disorders, 74 had personality disorders, 36 had substance abuse disorders, and 59 had psychosis disorders. And only, which was like crazy. Like, basically, if you have a stalker, again, the last thing you should even be thinking about is their narcissism, because they got a whole crock pot of issues going on that is probably contributing to this more than their narcissism will. The only trait that was narcissistic in nature that associated with stalking was the entitlement. Yeah, and none of these are mutually exclusive. And another terrifying thing is only 39% had a previous criminal conviction. Only 39%. And only one was previously convicted of stalking. Which is so insane to me, because I'm sorry, if you're a stalker, you've probably done it multiple times before. Ugh, God. So anyways, it divided up into 5 groups of like types of stalkers. All of which had like their own kind of characteristics to them. The most common was the rejected stalker. Basically, they had a falling out with somebody and they started stalking them afterwards. This one was most common to be associated with personality disorders, but also delusional disorders were also common comorbidly. It describes a very confusing mixture of a desire for reconcilement and revenge. And see, that I think is so important to remember when we talk about some of these people, is a lot of them, they're stalking because they know that these tactics are intimidating and frightening and stuff like that. They know that this is behavior they're using this behavior instrumentally. It's not, for a lot of these people, it's not like this delusion, they want to hurt you, which is why I don't think that, at least for these rejected stalkers, that insanity should not be able to use as a defense. Then there's intimacy-seeking stalkers. Delusional disorders were over half of them, and most of them actually thought that the love that they had for these people was reciprocated. But some of it was due to like but they were very often prone to jealousy too. It's like, oh my God, you're cheating on me, even though, we've never been together and I've never actually met you because you're a celebrity. A couple of them were celebrities that were which is, I guess I'm not a celebrity, but still terrifying that, that happens. Autoerotic delusions, not autoerotic. Autoerotic, I don't remember how to pronounce it. Oh well. So it was very, very interesting there, and you can see in this case maybe mental illness should be used as an excuse if they are genuinely so in their psychosis that they feel like that this person like is in love with them. Clearly, they need some help, and it's maybe not necessarily their fault. And then there's the incompetent stalker. Now, this is funny. These people knew that their love wasn't reciprocated. And it wasn't that they were obsessed with them, they were just infatuated. The most common group here were people who had intellectual disabilities, which is really, really interesting. Because basically they didn't know how to court somebody. And so they thought stalking was the way to go about it. Now, there was some that were just entitled men who were doing this. It's like, oh, I deserve to have this person. And there's, narcissistic trait popping up. But the majority of them were just intellectually limited and generally did not know how to actually court somebody. Which, in a weird way, I find almost more terrifying than... Another group was the resentful stalkers, which are distinguished from the rejected stalkers because the resentful ones are purely looking for revenge and to frighten and intimidate. Normally this was towards groups like previous lovers and stuff like that, but also just this more general kind of hatred towards the world was also common. For example, there's this one guy in the study who apparently he randomly saw this woman that he thought looked successful and smart and rich and stuff like that, and he stalked her because he was frustrated about a rejection for a promotion. It was just kind of this general hate towards anything that was more successful than he was at the moment. And the last one are predatory stalkers, and this is the rarest group. Only 6 of the 144 of them were predatory stalkers. These are people that were preparing a sexual attack, and this was primarily associated with paraphilic disorders. And at first I was like, man, this is the worst of the worst right here, right? And, obviously this shouldn't be used as a excuse in court, of mental illness, stuff like that. But interestingly enough, apparently this is more of a compulsion than I originally thought, because one of them actually sought help because he found himself buying rope, and he was like, I'm going to do this basically to live out this fantasy. And he was like, I'm sick, I need to go somewhere and seek help, which good for him, honestly. Still messed up, but Also keep in mind that the duration of these stalking episodes were unrelated to any mental illness. Anyway, so the majority of these people were just almost all of it was paranoid personality disorder when it comes to personality disorders. But group by group, it's usually the intimacy seeking was associated with like delusional disorders and stuff like that, but there was a minor overlap with paranoid with personality disorders there. The rejected types were mainly had narcissistic entitlement and the paranoid jealousy. And then there was almost a pure culture of persecution, paranoid personality, delusional disorders, and paranoid schizophrenia in the rejected stalker group. Or not rejected, the resentful stalker group. Also, although I said earlier that, sorry, I'm having a hard time focusing. I don't know why. Oh well. Anyways, I'm also going to because they end off the study basically saying some strategies that they think will help reduce stalking and make them like stop. And I'm just going to read that verbatim from the article real quick. Quote, effective strategies for ending stalking involve an appropriate combination of legal sanctions and therapy. The majority of rejected stalkers will desist under the threat of persecution, but their continued abstinence is assisted by an appropriately supportive and directive therapeutic relationship, which will usually be with a mental health professional, but can be with a parole officer. Intimacy-seeking stalkers always require psychiatric intervention, although compliance may require a court order or, in extreme cases, incarceration. Predatory stalkers are primarily a criminal justice problem, although management of their paraphilic disorder may be relevant to reducing recidivism. The incompetent stalker requires augmented interpersonal sensitivity and communication skills, which are easier to prescribe than produce. In our experience, resentful stalkers are most difficult to engage, although time attenuates their bitterness and drive for revenge. So interesting. That doesn't really help people, who are being stalked that much, because this is more of like a system-wide thing. But still, I thought it was interesting. Anyways, that's the majority of what I read about stalkers. It's more of a mental health issue than I thought, I suppose. And I think it's something that does deserve more research and stuff like that, especially given that there's like a 8% chance that a woman will be stalked sometime in her life, which is terrifying. Anyways, everyone have a good day and take your fucking meds, please.